I want to call to order the Rutherford County Commission Public Safety Committee for April. Good to see each and every one of you here this evening. At this time, I'd like to read a statement that we are requested to read from the Governor. This meeting of the Public Safety Committee is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting this meeting electronically is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in the light of the coronavirus. Do I have this motion?
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Motion's been made. Do I have the second?
Second.
Have the second. Please call the roll, Madam Secretary.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
We have a quorum.
At this time, we'll take item 1, which is the approval of our minutes. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Chairman, I have reviewed and have noted that the minutes of the meeting from March 22nd is correct and true and move for their acceptance.
We have that motion. Do I have a second? Have the second. Commissioner Phillips, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Move into item 2 is the Sheriff's Report. Good evening, sir.
I'll do the first. The only thing I've got is an increase of $12,977. This is an insurance recovery on a K-9 vehicle that was totaled. It was a no-fault accident where someone had pulled in front of our vehicle and subsequently was charged. And this is an insurance recovery, and we want to put that in 718 motor vehicles.
Move to approve.
Motion's been made to approve. Have the second. Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. All right, on the report.
Okay, on the budget report and reviewing that, there's not any items in there that are of concern to us. It looks like everything is pretty much in line.
Just a quick question. Overtime, you think you're going to be okay for the rest of the year?
No, we're going to be probably, next month? Yeah, we're going to run out of money. So I think we'll have it within our budget to transfer. But
Any other questions?
I move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made to approve. Commissioner Phillips, have a second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Rather. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Passes.
And the only other thing I've got is on April the 21st, we had our unannounced visit, state audit from the Tennessee Corrections Institute on our detention facility. For the 5th year in a row, we got a no defect 100% pass. So this is the 5th year in a row which we've had no defects in our jail operation. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Yes, sir. 5:35 today. 5:35 today. Okay.
Okay.
Chairman,
Commissioner Rather.
Yeah.
quick word, congratulations. Good job.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So,
Anything else? Not? Thank you, Sheriff. Paul's report. Good evening, sir.
You can see for the month of March, we had 553 animals come into the shelter. We had 531 come back out. Our live release rate for our dogs was 97.5%, cats 97.5%, and overall, when you include wildlife, was 97.6%. That may be the highest that I can recall, so we're very proud that that number consistently is staying at least above 90%, but again, 97.6 for last month. Our surgery programs were very active last month. We had 245 animals that were reclaimed that were from our surgery programs. They've been doing a really good job back there in the vet area. We had 71 animals left in the shelter at the end of the month. Almost 2,500 people visit the shelter and over 1,800 log calls and voicemails for the month. And we closed out 1,604 calls. You can see the breakdown of the jurisdictions there. And that put us traveling 12,606 miles. Fiscal year to date, you can see our live release rate is 93.3%. We've closed out 14,136 calls, and we've traveled almost 108,000 miles. If you look over at our rabies exposure and bite report, if you'll recall, this goes by calendar year, not fiscal year. For the month of March, we had 42 bites reported. None of those were sent for testing. We had 4 other exposures. One of those was sent for testing. It did come back negative. On this report, you'll see that we've only had 1 skunk that's tested positive thus far this year. Just preparing you for April, we've had a couple that have tested positive this month already out in the Christiana zone. Both of those, if I recall, were skunks that had gotten into fights with dogs. The last page of the report is just the graphic so that you can see the live release versus euthanasia and the other outcomes for our animals visually versus just seeing it on just stats on a sheet. So that is the report, sir.
Okay, sir. Any questions on the report?
You've been using your mobile unit any at all?
Not really. We were using the mobile unit a lot back when we had the grant that was going. But it's just much more cost effective for us to be able to do the adoptions in-house. Now we are currently in talks with the Petco store over on Medical Center to do some off-site adoption events there. We would not use the unit. We would utilize volunteers and have more of a permanent type cage that would stay there. So we still get that exposure, but not having to go to the expense and the upkeep of that trailer. We do still have the trailer. Trailer is still operational. Basically now it's there just in case of an emergency. When we had the flooding the end of last month and whatnot, we went out, made sure everything was working and ready to go. That way if we were called out, we had a place to be able to set up and go.
Other questions?
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made to approve, Commissioner Phillips. Second, Commissioner Gurley. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. And I believe you have a budget amendment?
Yes, sir. I have a couple items for you to consider. The first one is we received a grant from what was formerly known as the Petco Foundation. It's now called Petco Love. We applied for that back in the fall. We received notice a couple of weeks ago that we'd received $35,000 for that. We're asking to recognize part of that money in this fiscal year to go into our drugs and medical supply line item for heartworm treatment medication, and then the remaining money from this year going into our other equipment. When we wrote that grant, it was to provide some new equipment in our play yard and some shade for our volunteers in that play yard as well. So that's the first one. The second one is asking to move money just within line items within our budget so that we have enough money in those lines to finish out this fiscal year.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Okay, motion made to approve.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. Any questions? Not, please call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it? Okay, thank you, sir. Our Osha Report. Mr. Elam.
Good evening.
Evening, sir.
Osha Report for the month of March. You will see there's a total of 13 accidents. For the year, there are 49 accidents. Total recordable, 37. Restricted day claims, 19. Lost days claims, 7. Other recordables, 11. On the next page, you will see on the on-the-job injury claims, year-to-date, 2019 was 51, 2020 was 47, 2021 was 49. On-the-job injuries, dollars incurred. On the next page, you will see year-to-date. 2019, you had 104,000. 2020, you have 128,000. And 2021, you had 190,000. That's what's estimated. And on the next page, you'll see the cause of injuries. Again, you had a total of 8 at the Board of Education, 5 at County General. And in the County General, you'll see 3 at the Sheriff's Office, 1 at EMS, and 1 at the Health Department. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Okay, sir. Any questions?
I'm more of the answering type.
Motion to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion been made to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Phillips, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You have a good evening.
All right, next is Recovery Court Report. Good evening.
For the month of March, Recovery Court has 4 new participants. That's on the first page of the report. We had 5 successful completions of our programs in the month of March with 4 unsuccessful discharges. Those range from people who had absconded and had been picked up, or people who had been picked up new charges and chose to self-terminate. We have a total of 136 participants at this time. We continue to see a rise in drug screen issues where folks are relapsing. We attribute that, unfortunately, to isolation and lack of support in the community just because of the coronavirus and COVID restrictions. We are encouraging our clients to seek online options as well as in-office, come in office more frequently, and more meetings in the community. One of our clients who had really been struggling recently realized that there was a shortage of things in the community to do, so she has taken it upon herself to throw herself into AA at such a level that she's now organizing social meetups for people that are in recovery, the females specifically, so that they are not sitting at home and isolating and getting in the pattern of using. So I just wanted to brag on that particular participant today. We also had one of our veteran graduates who, because of his completion of the program and his ability to remain sober, he was re-interviewed at the VA this week and will likely be regaining his federal employment because of his strength in his recovery. Unfortunately, I do have one non-exciting thing that happened. We lost one of our clients this month in an unfortunate accident. It was not alcohol and drug related, but I don't feel like it would be appropriate for me to stand up here and brag about all the good things without giving him a mention in my report this month. So he and his family, I'm sure, well, his family would appreciate some thoughts his way. We did go ahead and apply for the Dui Grant that you all gave us permission. We have not heard back from that. We don't expect to hear back probably until the end of July, early August, so I will keep you up to date on that. And that, sir, is my report.
All right. Any questions?
Motion to approve the report.
Have the motion. Commissioner P., do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Rather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner P? Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. All right. Probation? Good evening.
For the month of March, our total expenditures was $127,911.01. The total revenue collected by the clerk's office was $7,599.01. For the total revenue collected for the month of March was $24,004.01, with a difference of $103,907. The amount of money in probation fees alone that was turned over to the clerk's office to be collected for the month of March totaled $9,199. The amount of money that was not turned over to the clerk's office for those that failed to enter a payment agreement equaled $9,832. The total amount so far this fiscal year that was turned over to the clerk's office to be collected on their payment agreement totaled $99,929.75. The amount of money that has not been turned over to the clerk's office for those that failed to enter a payment agreement so far this fiscal year totaled $94,405.75. And that would be my March report.
Okay. Any questions anyone has? Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are you moving this week?
Yes, we started, OIT came today and we started packing up computers today, so.
Okay. Y'all excited?
Very, yeah.
Okay, I walked by there today and they said, we've got air conditioning. So I guess that's a big deal, huh?
That's a plus.
From where you come from?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let us know if you need any help.
We actually have, there's a couple of employees, they had a little ceremony today. They have those portable air conditioning units, and we just put the ductwork to go up into the ceiling, so they all pulled them out in the hallway and decided to load them up in their cars and take them home since they're not needed. So we've had those in our office for a number of years, and it's kept it a little cool in there, so yeah, we're excited.
Awesome.
I saw that other day as they were unloading over here on the, moving to the square, which is something I think is very good that we're seeing this happen. All right, I don't think I've had a motion on the report. Have I had that?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion to approve. Commissioner Phillips, have second. Commissioner Sereno, please call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. Correctional Work Center.
Evening. Included in our report is our meetings from the Work Center Board that was held on April 5th. Take a look at that. And then next, you will find our work release program, just still going well, even though we have had some issues with our population being as low as it is, and with COVID, we're still able to put people to work every day. Our yearly activity report, like I said, our head count is down. A lot of that has to do with the pandemic and the fact that the state of Tennessee is taking back so many state inmates right now. Our monthly worker report showing a combined total savings of $73,232 this past month. And you will see our litter pickup reports for the past couple months. And then added in there also is the report that I told you about last month I was going to start adding, since we're doing all the litter pickup throughout the county now, county and state roads. If you'll take a look at that, it just says that we collected 12,100 pounds of garbage off the side of the roads over the county and the state, or just county roads, 12,000 pounds, and then state routes, they go by bags collected, and that was nearly 800 bags. That's not counting the car parts and some of the bigger items that we find on this side of the interstate, but just bags alone, nearly 800. And we also, like the Sheriff's Office, went through our Tennessee Corrections Institute inspection, and I'd like to say that for our now 11th year, we have been recertified with no deficiencies. And that is my report.
We're just a pretty trashy bunch of folks, aren't we, when it comes down to it?
A lot out there.
Throw all of that out. Any questions anyone may have?
Motion to approve the report.
I believe we have Commissioner. We'll take that motion, but have a second?
I give a second.
I have a second. I think Commissioner Rather had something he wants to say.
Well, you know, I know personally a few of the people on the board, specifically Dave Bucket, Mr. Hartley, which was my gym teacher at Bellwood when I was in elementary school, and the rest of the board. I've watched this over the years. They do a tremendous job. I know Mayor Ketchern, you're on that board too. Tremendous job. But I do want to say I've had some phone calls over the last couple months about trash. I call him. Within 48 to 72 hours, I get a phone call or an email back, "Thank you so much." That's how quick they respond. And I won't get into the content of the trash on Weekly Road, or Weekly, whatever you call it, but that is a tremendous service to this county, and you got to applaud the guys that do it, but you got to applaud the guy that leads the charge. And I just want to say, tremendous job. Wonderful
Appreciate
job.
that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just want to say, I
Go
had
ahead,
served.
Virgil.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Who wants to go first? I'll yield to Mr. Virgil Gammon.
Okay, I just want to say, I served on the board for a good number of years before I was elected commissioner, and I worked directly with Bill and Bernard, and when Bill took over, it never hit a lick, and he's always given 110%. But I also can concur with Commissioner Rather that I've called him a number of times, and I mean, they're flat on top of it, always has been. You've got a superb bunch of employees out there, and I'll be honest with you, the people that you take out, you know, they have a purpose, and there's so many things the workhouse is doing that it don't always come up, but I mean, people now come out of the workhouse with thousands of dollars in the bank, and paying child support and a number of other things. So I mean, that again, as Commissioner Rather said, that starts at the top and trickles down. And so I compliment you, and job well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I just wanted to say that I'll third that, but I want to bring up a couple of things. Well, number one, that sofa I saw on the side of the interstate, y'all take it back and you're using it, or?
We put that in the trustee pot.
But it's amazing what you see on the side of the interstate. But I've been getting several calls lately about the lack of ability to dispose of stuff other than hauling it all the way to the landfill. A lot of times these people just have a small amount of stuff. And apparently, from what we're seeing from you, a lot of that stuff is going on the side of the road or in somebody's vacant lot or something. So I really think we really need to, I'm not on Public Works anymore, but we really need to think about relaxing some of those no-take items back at the convenience centers, because people are going to get rid of it somewhere. And obviously, from what I'm seeing on the side of 840 and 24, they're getting rid of some pretty big items in the way of appliances and furniture and other such stuff on the side of the roads. And I'm sure the same is true out on some of the more rural roads, especially where they think they're not seen. But really and truly, I really think if anybody from Public Works is in here or Public Works is listening, that we need to really start thinking about allowing a limited amount of, when people have those small amounts of stuff like that, that they've gone. To me, it's better for it to go to the landfill, go to the convenience center it is on the side of the interstate. But I think you're doing a great job. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And you are right, Commissioner Gurley. We sometimes will find entire bedroom suits that someone has just literally stopped and pushed out of the back of a truck on the side of the road. And you know, that slows down from the normal trash pickup.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Gurley, I agree with some of the stuff that's being dumped out in the rural area. Matter of fact, last weekend I took down to Mid-10 Metal. Somebody decided to drop off a stove in my yard, and it wasn't in the country. I don't know if it was in good condition when they dropped it off, but by the time it hit the pavement and rolled into my yard, it wasn't. So they just left it and didn't come back to get it. So I got $12 for taking that down, for the used metal part. But I met with with our engineer, Jay Bradley, that we've contracted with through Public Works, met with him this morning. We're moving forward on at least 4 of our convenience centers, Rockville, Almaville, Weekly, and Leanna. If we get this grant money, we'll do all 15. But we're moving forward on that, trying to get those going as quickly as possible. We think we've got a pretty good idea of what it's going to cost us to put those in, and we want to mirror what Williamson County is taking. They'll take small debris, construction material, as long as it doesn't exceed the top of your pickup truck. If it exceeds that, you got to take it. At that point, you have to take it. But if you got sheetrock and some metal, you're doing some work at home, then you're allowed to bring that. Williamson County, they even allow oil, waste oil. They allow so many different things, and their hours are expanded. So that's the direction we're going. It's going to take us a little while to get there, but we're heading in that direction, because you're exactly right. They're going out in the country and dumping everything that they can. If we're closed, because our hours are so short, they don't want to take it back home. Their wife will fuss at them for bringing it back home, so they go find some place that's secluded out in the country. We've had several out in your area, Commissioner. And Director Cope's got a crew out there that, within an hour or two picking that up, so we thank him for that. So before you conclude your report and vote on it, would you mind telling the members where we are with our new mechatronics program, and we're so excited about that opportunity?
Our equipment is in. It is up and running. We've had the manufacturer come out and test all the equipment. Our new employee who has started is going through the same training that it takes to be able to train, kind of like a train the trainer. So as soon as he finishes that up and passes, then we're looking at a May start date, sometime in May. So it's really exciting. It's probably going to be, I know of some other programs that they're doing, some tool and die and some things like that, but I don't know of any other mechatronics that they're doing in the state of Tennessee. And
There's not another program in the state that's doing this, and through your all's allowing to use that governor's 20 grant that we received, we were able to buy $100,000 worth of mechatronics equipment to give Director Cope and his staff, and we hired the guy that's going to be teaching it is from the GM plant, and he's well qualified to come up and teach. Be 8 hours a day, so we'd like to arrange at some point an opportunity for your committee to go out and see that and what they're doing, because we should be getting some statewide or national recognition for this, because we're ending that cycle of recidivism. If we can train these folks while they're housed with him and they get some type of certification and they can get out and actually get a job doing what they're trained to do, maybe they can get an apartment and get a transportation where they can go to work and not end up back with him. And
right now, the plan is to start with some of those that are on work release that are already making money, so they'll be able to pay for these certifications. And then I've talked with some donors also for the future. Hopefully, we'll be able to get the certification is about $50 each. Certification, there's 4 different components to the program, so we'll hopefully find some donors at some point who will donate some money to go to that for those who cannot pay for it. But for this first cycle, we're looking at using those work release guys who are already, we had one that left last year after working consistently in the program. He had saved up right at $60,000 in his bank account. So these guys are making good money. They're paying their child support, they're paying their fines and fees, and they're paying a housing fee to stay there. So let's give them a little extra too, and see if we can't boost that and put them out on the street as productive citizens. So.
Okay. Commissioner Gurley, I'll have to take up for Public Works a little bit, because I think at their last meeting they discussed exactly the same things you were discussing there. They brought those same items up, and they are trying their best to get to that too. So it's not just us, but I think everybody has recognized that too. But appreciate you bringing that forward. We have a motion. We do have a second. So if you'll call the roll, Commissioner Rather.
Well, I'm so excited that the mayor brought up Leanna.
Sorry.
I've been worn out over Leanna. Now, I do want to say this, and I don't know the resolution. I was on Public Works, but recently I've had some few propane tanks, computer monitors, computer hard drives, PCs I call them, and I had to call solid waste. Where do they go? Well, you take these out here, you take these over there. The monitors cost me couple dollars a piece. I think I paid $8 to get rid of some monitors. So my point is 2 things. I'm so glad about Leanna, and I'm gonna hold you to it. Cut down on some of my phone calls. But the other thing is, how many people actually, we got 350,000 people in this county on average. 326, whatever it is. How many people watch these meetings and watch the county station that tells them what to do? Not that many compared to the whole group. So what do people do? They dump the propane tanks on the side of the road, and the computer monitors, mattresses. I don't know what the answer is, but we've got to reach far beyond that and say, here's what you do with the mattresses. Here's what you do with the computer screens. Here's what you do with the PCs. I don't know what the answer is, but there is a solution to all this dumping. If people would pay attention and make a phone call, it would cut the trash drastically. So it's lack of knowledge. And Rutherford County TV, it's a great resource. It's incredible. But how many people actually watch it and pay attention to it? So, you know, it's all about education. We talked about recycling on the public works, and the recycling ain't going to work if we don't have education. And how do we educate the 300,000+ people in this county? So, there's a place to dump everything. I don't want to say dump. Discard everything. I've already been through it, personally. There's a place.
You're correct, Mr. Chairman, if I may. You're correct, Commissioner. We just last week, we've transferred the litter grant over to Director Cope. He and Ashley will be working very closely together on that litter grant, getting it submitted. It had to be submitted, I think, by today to the in our long-range plan also to the Regional Solid Waste Authority, who met this afternoon. But it's changing the culture is what we have to do, and that's only through education. Ashley's doing a great job. We've got new little things, new little kind of caterpillar-looking things that are going to be part of that advertising campaign, not only on our website, but it's going to be on our Facebook account. Actually, we had slips that went in CUDs. We stuffed them in their mail that went out with the CUD bills to all the customers across the county. So it's changing the culture. At least we're moving in that direction. Mattresses, we now have an outlet for mattresses. That new company that you all, American Thrift, that you all approved, we'll be able to start taking mattresses at our locations and disposing of them down in right across the border from Chattanooga. So yes, there is a place to take everything. We're working on it.
And Commissioner Rather, just to echo kind of what the mayor said, with that litter grant that we just applied for, there are certain components of it that are just allocated toward education. And that's something that Ashley and I sat down and talked about, and I think we've got some pretty good ideas. I'd love to have some input from you too, so maybe we can get together on that.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. That got you? Thank you. All right, I believe we're in juvenile detention.
Good evening. You'll find in front of you our report for the month of March. I need to update the yearly activity reports to let you know that we have no outstanding bills at this time. All the counties are caught up. We finally were able to get with Smith County, they were having some trouble trying to figure out who the right person was that cuts the checks there apparently, but they got it figured out and they got us our money, so they're all good now. Beyond that, I don't think there's anything really that stands out in the report, but I will happily take any questions that you have.
Any questions, gentlemen?
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve.
Second.
Motion to second. Commissioner Sereno, please call the roll.
Mr. Rather,
Yes.
Mr. P,
Yes.
Mr. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. Gorley,
Yes.
Mr. Sereno,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have got a quick question for you. Just looking at bed days for Rutherford County, male and female, looks like they're down significantly, at least especially the female, but the out-of-county beds seem to be, well, at least the male seem to be up. Is that, am I reading that right, or
You are.
anything going on that?
I think what you're seeing is similar to what Superintendent Cope talked about. The pandemic has affected, and I think will continue to affect, law enforcement interactions, and we have the Juvenile Detention Center has new staffing ratios that the state has asked us to abide by, which makes it a little harder to accept females from out of county. If you'll look on the second page, a lot of the domestic assaults are being released. So the magistrates are really taking a good look at the petitions when they come through and making sure that they're detaining the ones that desperately need to be held. And then the traffic that's coming is not like it once was. We still also have the cases that we process but don't hold, so those are still coming in too. But as far as officers bringing the kids in like they once did, that's just not happening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety Director. Director Clark. Evening.
Chairman. You should have the emergency management report in front of you, and I'd like to point out that in March 25th to be exact, we had a tornado to touch down in Smyrna. Caused, on our assessment, we had 66 homes that were affected during that tornado. No injuries to report of, and we made visits to Smyrna. Smyrna Fire Department assisted with doing a great job with damage assessments and partnered with those guys, and they did a tremendous job in making sure that the area was secure. I made a visit that night to Smyrna to make sure that they didn't need any resources or anything like that, and they did a phenomenal job. Then we hit March 27th. We had some rain during that day. We started gathering resources. I think that some of you have seen the results during the full commission of a water rescue that saved a man and his daughter. And that the EOC was activated at 9:27 that night, and it stayed activated for 2 days. After that, we performed damage assessments, and of approximately 33 homes that were affected in that flood. I'd like to thank our staff that stood up during these times. We were some tired individuals. We changed out during different operational periods. Our partners, EMS, fire, Law enforcement was at the Emergency Operations Center concerning road closures. We activated a new program called Survey 123 to help the community see where those road closures were, along with our first responders. We also are monitoring COVID-19, of course. That's always the number one subject in the last year. We are seeing a downward slide. Mr. P texted me today and wanted to get back with him on that, and those numbers were from 4/23 Friday. And taking that, we're still seeing a slight decrease in our numbers. So we're assisting with resources at State Farm on a continuous basis, such as mobile command, fuel. We're working right now with Smyrna. Smyrna has their signs out there, the street signs. We're going to need to send them back, so we reached out to TDOT, and they're going to replace those signs at State Farm and getting ready for the Great American Air Show in June. We're also tent relocations, things like that, and trying to tweak that. So they're doing well out there and moving forward, and we have a great public health department, and we all work really well to support that function. I also like to touch base, and I noted in here the generator on Lynch Hill. This week I have a meeting with Coffee County and Bedford County emergency management agencies to concern and see if they can help us purchase a needed generator on Lynch Hill. And I added that in our notes. I think that is a big ticket item, and we're wanting to reach out and hopefully have them share that cost. So that is coming. I guess that's my report, and I will try to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions on the report? Not, I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve the report.
Motion made to approve, Commissioner P.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gurley. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Continue.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we move forward, I've had a discussion with Director Clark and the mayor. I have video on this phone, and I think it's appropriate for this committee. I have a video where there's a sign up that says, "Do not cross if water's over the road." And a guy ignored everything I told him and drove right through the water. I have a video of sheriff's tape, sheriff's office, do not cross, and a lady pulls up and she's going to take the tape down. Now, in my district at Sulphur Springs and Shacklet, it floods all the time. There are spots all over the county, far from my district, that the same things happen. There was an Aldi semi-truck, 53-foot trailer, at least. Well, I don't think they get longer than that, but anyway, that tried to drive through the water and was sideways in the road, and the county, the citizens of this county, paid the money and risked the lives of the responders to rescue that guy off the hood of his semi-truck, correct?
Yes, sir.
That was on our dime, the citizens' dime. So the tape and the signs are being ignored. And yet our first responders, EMA, EMS, fire department, sheriff's office, they risk their lives because people ignore signs and tape. And I've been preaching this to Director Clark, and I think the mayor was involved in a little bit of that discussion. We've got to do something different than signs and tape, because back when I was a kid, you obeyed signs, you didn't cross tape. We're not in that society anymore. Authority means nothing. The tape means nothing, the signs mean nothing, but yet we put Chief Farley's guys in jeopardy, Director Clark's guys, Director Hudgens' guys, the sheriff's guys, we put them in jeopardy, their lives. And we expend that money and risk their lives. If we keep doing the same thing, at some point, when his guys gonna be in a bad position, Chief Farley, one of your guys gonna be gone. One of the sheriff's department guys are gonna be gone. So the tape and the signs don't work. And I've talked to Director Clark about it. The mayor and I had a brief discussion about it. I think it's being worked on. I wanted to bring it up in front of this committee because what we're doing isn't working. And at some point, one of our guys, it's going to be a sad day. Now, I don't know what the answer is. I know when you go into a city greenway, they've got gates up, metal gates, locked. Now, how does that work? If a gate's locked and people live on the other side, you know, the keys, do you do accommodate? I don't know the answer, but I think this committee really should investigate that and be responsible enough to come up with a solution to fix that problem, because what we're doing isn't working. And I'm going to be quiet.
Mr. Gurley?
Yeah, I think you probably will remember that a few years back, I think this may have been prior to Commissioner Rather being on the commission, that we talked about this. We even talked about an idiot tax. But I think we kind of concluded we're going to probably have a state law change. And I see the mayor wanting to comment on that, but I think that's what it gets back to. We have to render service, we do, and I've been out there. I've been one of the ones having to do some of the same things since I've done what I've done all throughout my life. But I'll let the mayor enlighten us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the state law's there, Commissioner. It was in, I think, 06, maybe, when I still represented Lincoln County. And we had a lady with 2 young children who went around the barricade on the swollen Elk River. And the county mayor at that time, Peggy Bevels, asked me to, the next following year, to introduce legislation, which I did. And that piece of legislation now makes it available for counties or cities to fine. It's a misdemeanor charge, and they're able to fine and recoup any funds that their first responders spent while putting their own members and the first responders and equipment at risk. So you can actually go back and fine and collect under that section of the code. It's just got to be up to the counties to go ahead and do it. Nobody's doing it.
Yeah, I don't think our then legal advisor gave us that information, if I remember right. That was prior to your term also.
To let you know that all the truck information is sitting on my desk currently. we pulled that information. We're generating a invoice template, and it is my intent to bill that company for the overtime, the manpower, the equipment, and any type of response that went to that scene. And if we can determine the individuals that are responsible for the other ones, then we can invoice them, and that is state law.
But what if one of your guys or Chief Farley's guys died?
I think about it every day.
How much is that invoice going to be?
And we can't replace a life, and that's what we're afraid of. And I continue, we had a federal campaign, Turn Around, Don't Drown. We've sent out numerous articles on turning around and don't drown. And unfortunately, we have people out here not taking personal responsibility and driving through these waters. I will be honest with you. I've been in this field for quite a long time as a department leader, and the first thing that I look at each day is the American flag, and that gets my mindset of what are you going to do if something happens to one of your people. And we have to think about that. Water rescue, especially in the middle of the night, is very, very dangerous. And so we want to prepare our guys for those rescues. We want to give them the best training possible in case they do get in trouble, which has happened a few times and their training kicked in. But our citizens are going to have to take personal responsibility not to move barricades, keep their eyes on the road, don't cross any water that's running over the road. We can put barriers over it. However, during this flood, a lot of those areas that flooded was 3 times the depth of what it normally is. So our width of that flooded area, Sulphur Springs and Shacklet, is a known target for our water rescue teams. But it spread it even further this time. So those gates, we can't pick them up and move them, so they're already being 3 foot of water before they ever hit that gate. I have requested a lunch meeting with Director Brooks, Superintendent Brooks, and it's our hopes that we will get together and talk about that. We'd like for Commissioner Rather to be with us and discuss some alternatives to prevent these individuals from driving in the water. I get it. It can be foggy. It's dark. They don't see it. They can run into the water. However, there are certain things that are very purposeful. That semi being one of them. So it is our intent to generate a template invoice, and we will send an invoice to that company to recoup some of our cost on that particular incident. And I'd like to do it for all of them. And from here on out, we'll start sending them a bill.
Chair recognizes Commissioner P.
Well, one thing I've found out being a volunteer firefighter is you can't fix stupid. That sounds a little bit trite, but I'll give you an example. We were working a storm, and we had electrical power lines down. And, of course, we've got fiberglass poles, things like that, insulation to get those off the road. Cleared these power lines, went on up the street, came back around. It was on a loop. And the guy, for some reason, went out and pulled those lines right back across the road. So we put them back, went on about our business, came back by a little while later, they'd pull those lines back out again. So like I said, you can't necessarily fix stupid. But one thing that we do know is, just like you said, Shacklet Road is one of the roads that floods. Gucci Ford always floods. It would be pretty easy. Right now we're using signs that we drop down that the deputies can do. I noticed driving back from Florida one time, there were these gates that block off the interstate when they use it for exits from hurricanes. And we could do something like that fairly cheaply, I would think, and something our deputies could put down if our road department couldn't get to it or our volunteers to get to it. But there are places where we could put gates that, even though, yes, sometimes the floods are bigger, but that's something I think we need to look at in some of these areas that we continually have the same problem. Elam's Mill.
Every time it rains.
Yeah. I mean, let's put a gate across there. That'll slow some people down. It may stop most people, reflective tape or whatever. These don't have to be elaborate. They can be counterbalanced where one person can just drop them down, put a lock on there. That'd be something that the deputies would have access to, or our road people, our volunteers, or, our firefighters, whatever. But I think it's worth looking at places like Elam Mill, places like Gucci Ford, where we know we're going to get this, and when it starts happening, we've got a deputy in the area. Let them drop that gate.
And I will get with Director Brooks, and I will contact Commissioner Rather, and we can have a conversation, and hopefully we can bring some type of resolve to this committee and discuss it further.
I think Director Clark brought up a good point, because I saw it firsthand. Kedron Church, and I was out during that time. Commissioner Blair and I had gone out a couple of days before to the Smyrna, because it sits right on our commission boundary, so to speak, where the damage was. And then I was back out as all this rain started in Kedron Church. The highway department had already put the road barriers across. However, the next day when I went back, it's pretty obvious from where the water got, one of those had gone downstream somewhere because it got up much higher than it normally gets. And so those barriers were obviously not only underwater but washed away. So this was one of those quick ones that came up and got higher quicker than a lot of the typical stuff that we're used to seeing. So there's a lot to be thought about and talked about when y'all meet and so on, of what kind of thing will stand up, because obviously the portable things, although they're pretty heavy, it just doesn't take much water. We all know that. And
some of the things that we can maybe look at is a highway safety grant. A lot of times law enforcement does apply for the highway safety grant. I don't know if that will apply. However, we need barriers sitting on standby, ready to go. If we got to fill them with water as we set them, and have a fire truck or some type of brush truck to fill them as we set them down, and then pull the plug when we need to remove them. But there has been some brainstorming on how can we prevent people from running into water. We had a significant event. It seems like only in my term do we have a 100-year flood, a COVID-19, tornadoes, and civil unrest. It's been definitely been a challenge, and hopefully we'll bring back some answers and let you guys discuss our solutions.
That's why we allowed you to raise your hand.
Thanks. Chairman, I wanted to bring up the discussion in this committee. I don't have the answers. I have some thoughts. My main goal is the signs of tape aren't working. And let me tell you, it's going to be bad. For me personally, if one of your guys perishes, if one of Chief Farley's guys perishes, I mean, we're talking about heroes. I think it's already been proven. We have heroes working in this county. You continue to be a hero because the same, I agree with Commissioner P, you can't fix stupid. I said this to you at a luncheon. You can't fix that. But we've got to do something different, or something bad is going to happen. Whether it's a citizen or your guys, Chief Farley's guys, Director Hudgens' guys, something. I don't want to be up here with a resolution about somebody that was a hero that is no longer with us. I don't want to be in that position.
I agree.
Thank you, sir. And we'll leave that with the director, and I think he's trying to move that direction. I think every one of us that are in districts that have had this water problem, we've seen some of this, and I think we'll move forward and try to see what we can do in that area. All right, sir, I believe you move on with your reports and what you have.
I'll move to approve the report.
We've already approved the report, I believe, didn't we? Yes. Yeah. It's been a while ago. I understand, Joe. If I didn't have this lady sitting right here, I would have done the same thing, because I leaned over here and asked her. I said, "Did we do that?"
Yes, we did. And I have the motion.
Okay. Now, Director.
Yes, sir. Tonight I'll bring to you the proposed 2021-2022 fiscal year budget request. One of the things that I need to point out is that we are requesting that, let me go back. So Ems Dispatch, we have a great EMS communication. However, that EMS communication center has grown to multi-functions. Now they dispatch for county fire as well and emergency management. After discussion, it is our request that we bring our communication center that's located on Southgate over to emergency management. And inside our budget, that will show the reflection of that move. During this emergency management, it may be placed in emergency management. However, it's an agree upon that Director Hudgens, myself, and Chief Larry Farley will provide guidance to that center and work together to assist our dispatch supervision and set policies and procedures and move us into the future. As you know, we're growing and we're expanding, and we need to continue that process. It will also allow a little bit more availability, where we had 180 employees or some odd 150 in EMS, and it will allow us all three of us to focus on the needs of our communications center, which is the hub of our operations. So in our budget, you will see that reflected into it. And I'll just be honest with you, this is my first year of really putting it together. Last year I came in here in the end of March, 1st of April, and they said, here's your budget. And this was the first year that we've came in here and I've actually had some input into this budget. And I do have paper copies if anybody would like a paper copy instead. I know it's difficult reading it on a computer. I'd like to point out a few things on this budget. Number one, in line item 105, I've requested a promotion position that will take Ms. Carrie Clark from EMA Ops Coordinator to our Public Safety Grant Manager. As you can see, she has done a wonderful job in our grant processes. She's very thorough, and to be honest with you, in the last year, that's the only thing that she could be able to focus on, is because she's got so many things, so many irons in the fire, and to help us make sure we regain or are able to be reimbursed for the supplies that we've used from COVID-19, from area disasters, for mitigation, Homeland Security, and multiple other ones. Our emergency management grants, EMPG, hazmat grants, and allows us to assist fire and EMS as well in their grant process. She's probably already done 4 times her paycheck in managing those grants and making sure that they are successful.
You've got that paper file, bring it up.
Sir?
Paper
Yes,
copy,
sir.
let me have it, I'm having problems.
Anybody else? In line 334, you will see a Motorola annual maintenance of $151,498. This is something that is part of the Motorola or the radio system annual maintenance. We have not signed that and accepted that system, but we anticipate that, and that's at the end of next year's budget. So it's hopefully we'll be able to flip that switch here over the next few months. We have a year in warranty, and then we will start that annual maintenance. So that number is prorated for that short period of time for next year's budget. Line 336, Lynch Hill generator replacement. We're in dire need of a generator on Lynch Hill. As I said earlier, I'm meeting with trying to reduce that cost. We've provided maintenance. During the ice storm, we spent many, many hours up there. I think that Bedford County did come and assist us a little bit on that, and then the state, the state of Tennessee also assisted us along with the National Guard to make sure that that tower, it holds a lot of our infrastructure and communication. That generator is very, very old and it's in need of replacement.
Only about 50 years old.
Yes, sir. It's old.
Mayor?
Chris, were you able to reach out to the other counties that participate on that, and what is the update on that?
I have a meeting with them Wednesday.
Okay.
I'm going to Bedford County to meet with Scott Johnson and Alan Lindley.
Okay, so Coffee County, Bedford County, and THP?
In THP, we have a contract with those guys, and they provide some of the maintenance as well.
Okay.
But we mainly are talking to Bedford and
Bedford and Coffee haven't been participating. That's all been ours, but it's integral. That tower is integral to their communication. So Chris and I talked about it and felt it was best to send a letter to them asking them, now it's budget time for those 2 counties to see if they can give some assistance in that replacement, because it's very important for those 2 counties. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Chris, quick question on, there's several of these line items where you're adding the dispatch. I
Yes,
assume
sir.
there'll be a decrease in the EMS budget for
Yes, sir.
those lines then?
Yes, sir. The EOC building signage was an increase in $4.99. Currently, we have 2 small stickers that are on the front window, and it's been there for years and years and years. We're requesting a large sign that's above the front foyer to be placed on that rock wall, so people understand, have somewhat a landmark there on West College Street. Uniform line item increased a little bit on line 451, $2,300. It is our intent, in fact, I had a meeting today with a gentleman for volunteer services that we would like to increase some of our to provide volunteer staffing. We have a lot of police officers and veterans that would love to help. They just don't know how. And so what we'd like to do is guide them in the direction of emergency management. During disasters, they can help us with the EOC. They can help us with damage assessments. They can help us in day-to-day operation. So those are the things that we want to partner with those kind of people to assist us and help us out with those situations. We also have radio technology personnel working together. Right now we have 2 or 3 that reach out to Peter and assist him pretty regularly. And all of these people are local and have a lot of great talent. And so we're already utilizing a lot of them, but we'd like to give them a t-shirt at least.
Chris, one other quick question here.
Yes, sir.
I noticed, for instance, supplies, materials, equipment, different things like that. Are these one-time expenditures something we can use these grant monies that are coming in on, or is most of this going to be repeating?
Most of them are repeating. It's a typical operating budget. Most of our grants deal with something that's above and beyond, or a capital expenditure project that will help infrastructure, things like that. But most of our, your office supplies, things like that, of course, there's typical normal operation budget. Some of the things that we do have to look at as far as normal operations is the wear and tear on our computers, such as Communication Center 365. Coming and going, and we need to make sure that they are continue to operate. There's no failures, there's no errors, and so one of those things to continue our operation was suggested by OIT that we replace that computer each year. So that it's maintained, it's in good working condition. It's the lifeline to our 911 system, and continue that process. Did that answer your question? The next on the list is a volunteer fire department stipend line, $5.99, and this is something new. This is something new that I'd like to bring to the front. We have approximately 100 volunteer firemen out here that risk their lives and assist in their communities every day. They attend training, business meetings, to make sure that their equipment's up and running. We want to, and what I'd like to see, and how I came about this was I reached out to a volunteer fire chief. I'll just be honest with you, it was Chief Mark Bricker. And I said that I would like to find some type of incentive to increase our volunteer organizations. And we talked and discussed, and this is what we came up with. This would be a max of $500 per volunteer if they meet certain criteria, and it's rated at the percentage of response in a year. It would generate from November to November, so whenever check is cut on that one-time stipend check or that incentive program, that they would have something to take back to their loved ones to assist them at Christmas. There are some stipulations with that. If any of those volunteers receive any wages whatsoever from Rutherford County, they're excluded. They need to have 64-hour live burn, which is a very minimum. And each as it goes down, and I have it laid out in your packet, each certification is so many dollars. So an EMT may be $40. And then the rating of, if they do 25% of the call volume of that year, that's $25. If they do 50, it does $50. But it'll be max of $500 per individual. And doing our calculations and doing basically a roll call on our volunteers and their training, we came up currently around $22,000. I put in 25 because I think that eventually we're going to start seeing a little increase in our the volunteerism, and we'll hopefully see some results out of that.
Quick question on that. I know the Rutherford County Fire Department has what they call their volunteers, that are paid, they'd be exempt?
I think they would be included, and the reason being is as long as they do not receive a wage from Rutherford County.
They're receiving a wage from Rutherford County if they're
Well, then they would
being
be
paid on call.
Well, then they would be excluded. If they receive any monetary whatsoever from Rutherford County, they would be excluded.
I keep wanting to say something about this and bite my tongue at the same time. You've got people that work for the county in their main job, say 9 to 5, and they go home and they volunteer as a firefighter or whatever. So they would be exempt too, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir. Because we're dipping into FSLA. And that was one of the things. I reached out to CTAS for their assistance when we talk about FSLA, wages, what can we do to help the volunteers. So we had those conversations prior to developing policies and procedures. To be honest with you, we still need to send this through our county attorney to make sure that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. But we are going to have to figure out a way to get more volunteers involved in our operation on each day-to-day.
One thing else I want to add is I'm not trying to talk this down. As a matter of fact, I think it's a good idea. I've read through your stipulations on what it would take and all. I think it's a good thing to try to promote volunteerism and to help them. For instance, when you and I were fighting fire together, assistant chiefs at side-by-side departments, we had around 300, 350 active firefighters in this county, and now it's around 100. So it's definitely gone down. We need to get that back up.
Yes,
but
sir.
I applaud you for thinking about that. Thank you.
In line 708, communication line, $33,975. Since we are putting in a new radio system, those radios have become into emergency management if we need new. We anticipate with the EMS's budget of 3 new radios to be placed in ambulances. And then also our workhouse, we're going to need to buy some spare batteries for their radios so that whenever these men and women come in to the workhouse, they will receive a radio from their coworker that's going off duty. We can slap another new battery in and they can continue to work instead of having to go and charge the radio from the past shift. Also in 709, 33.5, and you will see that was the updates to the computers and the workings and internally your hardware that's inside our communications center. Let me add that during this flood, a lot of people forget how we received those calls. We're on a new radio system. It's not muscle memory. And especially during a disaster or a large event, scaled event, our communication center was flawless. They operated multiple channels, multiple scenes. We had some very tedious situations on hand. They held their cool, they did their job. And I want to point out that, just be honest, I don't know how they did it. But they did it extremely well. They worked really well with the other PSAPs and making sure that we had the right information. If you can only imagine, we normally go to a chest pain on a certain road, but a lot of those roads were closed and then we need to determine which side of the flooded area that we need to be on. So they had to take all of that in consideration, and they did a great job. And then last but not least, we are requesting a pickup truck at Emergency Management that has a camper and a pull-out tray. During COVID-19, we have found out that there are several trailers that we've had to haul around We have wore out the fire department. County Fire Department has come to our aid multiple times, and to public health. We've used multiple trucks to pull different pieces of equipment to get those needed resources to whatever event that may be. We have a gentleman now, his name is Bernard Pike. He's emergency management coordinator. He is on call, and he is in a hand-me-down 2006 Ford Expedition with 150,000 plus hard miles. And we're in desperate need of a pickup truck that we could use as his response vehicle and as well as pulling equipment. And if you don't mind, as you go through these, I'll be glad to answer any questions. You may see some increases that I did not. There are a few that has moved over from dispatch, from RCMS into EMA. That some of those things we didn't have control over, such as benefits and things like that.
Director?
Yes, sir.
Before we get into talking any more about this, would you go through your structure slide? Because I think that really explains that, what you're doing. And I read through all this before I came, and it's an excellent as far as both the volunteer thing and this.
I ain't figured out how to operate this, so I'll just go through here. So I also produced a structure so that it's visible of how we operated of emergency management. And as you can see, we have an assistant director, Tim Hooker, and then it breaks down to individuals or programs such as the radio system coordinator, which is Peter Rogers that you speak with each month. An operations coordinator, which is Pike or Bernard Pike. We have our special operations personnel that's sitting at 585 Fortress Boulevard. And then we also have, as shaded in gray, a proposed move of our communications center. And it has approximately 18 employees and supervisors that are within our communications center. We're requesting for a promotion, the public safety grant manager, which is Carrie Clark, that does a phenomenal job. And then last but not least, Cody York and myself have discussed the needs of our public safety with fire, EMS, and EMA. It's a constant need, and we wear them out with technology. And we requested that we place an IT manager in the Department of OIT, and it would be designated for public safety. So we run multiple computer platforms. We have multiple, just take dispatch or communication center itself. There's probably, we operate, each console should have 3 to 4 PCs per se, per console. We have tablets that are in ambulances that are online. We have the same thing that's in fire trucks and our emergency management, and that doesn't even talk about our offices. And so we are constantly, and then not only taking care of what we already have, but let's move us to the future. And maybe even with their help, reduce some of our platforms that we're using so we can bind them into one. There's been multiple occasions Cody York and his crews have come in and assisted us. Instead of buying platforms, they generate it themselves. So we want that person to take us into the future and maybe even overall saving money instead of looking for another fix for another item. Are there any questions on the structure? I provided you some charts to kind of give you a visual on where the money is divided into. Salaries versus operational needs. And then also the salaries, when we split from SORT or special ops, the volunteer stipend or the incentive program is 1%, and emergency management and dispatch, as you can see. And then also, one of our largest expenditure in making sure that our operation is steady and secure is our radio system. This is a highly complex system that we're already seeing a huge difference in listening to our responders in the field. And it's very nice to know that they can stand in Rockville and talk to the hospital on their portables. Or we may be able to hear just recently, and it's not on the report, I responded to Walter Hill School on a gas leak. It was a phenomenal incident. I was very pleased. I responded to that call. We had 585 kids that had evacuated. The principals stand fast. We had SROs, we had police officers, we had firefighters, we had a unified type command there on the playground. It was kind of like a family reunion because all of those guys I already know. And we made it happen. Phenomenal job by the teachers, which one of them's mine. She's first grade school teacher there. But they did a great job. So the biggest thing is what are we going to do? Are we going to shut down the school for the day? Are we going to do lunch? How are we going to operate? So a plan was made that we felt like in 45 minutes the gas would be shut off. We will clear the building and make sure there's no gas in the building. Since the kitchen was gas operated, the school formed a plan to go down to Wilson Elementary, make those meals, and then bring them back to Walter Hill, and they resumed school that day. We were able to communicate on this new radio system flawlessly. Talking to school, I was talking to the school board on their radio. I had Sheriff's Department right beside me. I had principals, I had SROs, I had the fire department. They had staged on a hydrant. The only person I couldn't talk to was Atmos Gas. And so I think that's pretty phenomenal. Thanks to you and your consideration in this matter, we're able to talk and communicate, and that makes a situation a whole lot better. So, but that last chart shows about the expenditures of our radio system versus our operational needs. Any other questions?
Chris, the only thing else that jumped out at me is under other equipment. I just did a quick summary. You got about 30,000 there, and you hadn't really said what you want to spend that on. Last two pages. Page rather.
7-8. I've got 718 as my last page.
Let's see. You got 790. The 790 numbers.
Those 790 numbers are related to grants. So I believe, is it 18,000 and then a 3,000? Is that correct, sir? Yes, sir. Those are grant related. So Homeland Security, those grants we have to place into it. That was from prior year. Once we spend that, the federal government replaces that money.
I'd just like to comment. I came into what's now EMA in the mid-'70s. Somewhere over at your office is there's a little plaque with Member of the Year awards, which I got for 1978. But we did a lot with volunteers. And I'm glad to see volunteers coming back. you have to look for the right volunteers. I led, at that time, we had an auxiliary police unit, which I led, and we had to kick some people out because they did things that they shouldn't be doing. And I have no doubts that you will kick those individuals out if they don't do what they're supposed to be doing, because the level of professionalism is much higher than it was in 1975. But I do think there are people out there that have skills. They're not ready to lay down and go to bed and hang it up, and they're willing to share those skills. And it did cost. It did cost in regard to the fire department incentive. It cost a lot. I went on to, after we shut down the volunteer program, unfortunately, in the mid-'80s, to continue on with the Sheriff's Department, which Commissioner Rather has, and it cost. It cost, you have to be willing to put out not only time, but it costs materials and stuff. So I think that's good on both parts, but I'm really glad to see bringing back, because, like I said, there are people who are retired who have specialties. If you look around out here, you'll find in Rutherford County people with all kinds of special skills that they're willing to share a little bit. They may not have but 10 hours a month or so, but they're willing to share those, and that's good. That's good for the county. That's good for the citizens, and overall for very little money that we have to pay out. So thank you for doing that.
Mayor, do you have any comments on the budget, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I asked Director Clark to bring his budget. We worked hard on it. I love the volunteer program. I think we've said over and over again for the last 2.5 years that we just don't have the money to fully pay with the amount of firefighters that we have. So our volunteer departments are so instrumental in our county right now, and to bring in, if you will, a farm team to bring in these volunteers and give them some type of stipend to encourage them to get involved to help the rest of our citizens. We've gone through his budget. I was prepared to say that I totally agree with it, but after meeting with Lisa Saturday for about 3 hours, I'm recommending that we go forward to budget, but I'll be making recommendations to budget on all the different departments that we're going to have to carve out what is not. We're going to have to go back down to our needs compared to our wants, and so we'll like for you to go ahead and pass this on to budget, and we'll get down to some firmer numbers right now, but I think he's got a good budget.
Mr. Chairman, I move to forward to budget with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that.
We have the motion made to go and have a second.
Before we move out of this discussion, I'd like for everybody to go back to one of his charts. I think it's chart 1. Look at the bottom part of that chart, salaries by agencies. And we have more firefighters volunteering than we do paid firefighters. You see how much it's costing us? You see that percentage there, 1%? We need to do more for these volunteer departments to help them, because several of them are struggling to they're fighting and getting more volunteers and working on that. But being able to clothe those people and turnout gear and equipment that they need, that's something that we need to be open to. You know, if we can spend this on a pay department that's got probably it's got half, I think of 42, 43 people now, we can spend several $1 million on them, but we're spending, about $300,000 on our volunteers? Come on, guys, 1%? Anyway, look at that. We'll think about it as we look at this budget.
Well, I believe every volunteer should have been recently measured and turnout gear ordered, so every volunteer should have a new set of turnout gear. I believe through the grant, the governor's 2020 grant, and I also think that the extrication gear that we allocated was delivered last week to all the volunteer fire departments that we're giving them. And as soon as we can break ground on some of these new public safety buildings, it's going to give them a great opportunity of some place to rally in a new setting. So I think we'll see an upsurge of volunteerism and wanting to, that we can use that as a farm team, and those who want to finally go to work for those vacancies that we're losing in Chief Farley's. We're losing several members there. They're going to higher paying positions. So it's a constant give and take, but I think if we start this volunteer program here, it'll really, really help with all the tools we're giving them.
Commissioner Rather?
I just want to follow up with Commissioner P's comments. I was never a volunteer firefighter, but you could call me a volunteer sheriff's deputy. They called them reserves. Spent a year in training, FTO program, everything. And all I got paid was free soft drinks, coffee, and discounts at certain restaurants. But do you know why I did it? Passion. Passion. I wanted to help. I wanted to do something for Rutherford County beyond what I'd ever done. So the volunteer firefighters, they go through the training. They go through the blood, sweat, and tears to get where they are as a volunteer. And why do they do it? Passion. Because they want to make a difference. We live in Tennessee, the volunteer state. So I echo Commissioner P's sentiments that we should do more, because there are those guys out there that can do it and want to do it. And I think they'd probably step up a whole lot more if they got a little bit of help along the way. So I totally agree with Commissioner P. I really don't have a problem with your budget. I do think it, to say what the mayor said, needs versus wants. However, you deal with lives and the safety of Rutherford County citizens and its employees, yours and everybody else's. So I do think it's out there. I hope you ask for this and hope for this. And I hope we come up with what you hope for, not ask for.
I'd like to add that I don't know if a lot of people have thought about this, but we've had a challenging year, a very challenging year. We had firemen and paramedics walking into houses that we really didn't know exactly what that virus was going to be. Every day that they walked, every day that they were awake and they were at work, they were wearing a mask. Every day. And behind that mask is a person that thinks that they could probably take that virus home to their families. It is mentally draining. It causes fatigue. Just wearing the mask itself. Now we're up close, personal, treating those patients face to face, knowing that they have COVID-19. But in the early stages, we didn't know exactly what was going to happen. Every day. Our deputies never missed a beat. Our firemen never missed a beat. Our EMS, they stepped up. And so our communication system, we had to change the questions that we were asking medical patients as they call 911. And these are the guys that serve every day and never checked up. And in fact, they kind of got upset because they were quarantined for 2 weeks when they did have an exposure. These are the type of employees we have, but they're tired. They're getting worn down. You're making all these calls, wearing a mask, and every one of them are buddies of mine. It's hard to see them go out there and knowing that we're not sure exactly what you're going to bring home. It's been tough. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough year on everybody. It's going to be a tough year on the budget. But one of the things is that they never checked up. And I'm very proud of them. We made some situations that were very grim. We turned them to the bright side. Our public health, I don't know if y'all have seen that operation out there. Never checked up. They were in the winter. It was sleet and snow, and they were still out there giving shots. They were testing. It's unbelievable. They have an operation out there that's far from anything else I've ever seen, and we had to spur that up off our hip. They've done a phenomenal job. And I guess last but not least, I'm just glad I live in Rutherford County.
We have a motion. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gammon?
Absolutely, yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes, definitely.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sereno?
Yes.
Mr. Rather?
Yes.
Cameron Reed?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, ready for fire and rescue?
Commissioner P, the education tools that were purchased, we had a class week before last. We had out of 3 departments, we had 27 people sign up for the class. All 27 showed up. We spent 40 hours going through education class, and everybody did great. I had a good participation, and those tools were delivered. All the tools were delivered to all the volunteer departments this last week. The turnout equipment we measured for everybody, the turnout gear, all that's starting to come in. When we get all that everything arrives, then we'll start distributing that out to all the volunteer departments. It was turnout coats, pants, boots, helmets, gloves, the whole ensemble of what they need for turnouts. Commissioner Rather, the Audi truck that you was talking about, when our guys got that truck as an 18-wheel truck, 53 foot long, and it was completely underwater, we got there, the driver was on top of the cab. We got him off the cab. And he drove off in there thinking he could drive through it and just kept going until he got out and had to climb up on top of the truck. That truck was completely submerged down the water when we left. We ran over 40 water calls. 17 of those were actually rescue calls. For the month of March, we had 593 calls of service. Year to date, we've had 1,893 calls. Total call volume, including the volunteers, was 2,335 calls. The next page is what we turn into the codes department that were structure fires, and we've had a lot of structure fires this year. It's kept everybody busy. The next sheet is the fire investigation report.
we're just now getting our fire alarms stocked up and starting to get those back by installing those because of COVID. And then the last sheet is our unauthorized illegal burning report. And if there's not any questions, that completes my report.
Any questions on the report?
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Phillips. Have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Rather. Call the roll.
Mr. Gorley?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sereno?
Yes.
Mr. Rather?
Yes.
Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
One of the things that has gone up this year is wages, including because we're trying to, since we took over SORT station in 2019, we have that station does not have any lieutenants, any supervision, or any engineers. We have people that are doing the job, classification, but not getting paid for it. So this wages and salaries includes 5 lieutenants and 3 engineers and a fire marshal, because I'm doing both duties, and we're getting a lot of commercial buildings put in, and we have to inspect those and pre-plan those as far as what needs to be sprinkled and look at all the plans. That's getting more and more as the county continues to grow. So that's a little higher. And then, of course, the wages and salaries, the pensions, the insurance, all that's gone up with it. But those are employees that we already have. We're not adding employees, we're just adding promotions because we need supervisors and engineers, the drivers of those trucks at Station 60. The communications line item is the same as it was last year. The data processing services is same as it was last year. That's our ESO reporting, our software, our computer-aided dispatch that we have in our vehicles that are connected to dispatch, and our Salamander, which is our on-scene accountability. ESO software reporting up there is like $23,000. That includes all of our fire software reporting that all the volunteers and we use to do our TFERS reports. Our training budget is the same as it was last year. I am asking for a copy machine to go down to the training center on College Street, because that's where all of we have all of our classes, whether it be volunteers or firefighting classes or education classes. We need the copy machine for tests to be able to print tests and other documents. It won't be used that much, but it'll be an asset to have it down there. Maintenance and repair, 336, is the same as it was last year. That is to repair our extrication equipment and small pumps and motor repair. I did go up on line item 338. This is our maintenance and repair of all fire apparatus, because we do take care of all the county-owned trucks that the volunteers have. They've all got a brand new apparatus, and the 1999 models are, the cost is going up on them to maintain them because they're over 20 years old. So I've gone up from 139 to 160 on that. Everything else is pretty much the same. Cleaning supplies for 11 stations. Diesel fuel, when I did this, gas hadn't started going through the roof, so it's at 66,000, same was last year. I mean diesel fuel, excuse me. I went up a little bit, $2,000 on medical supplies. I went up on a little bit more on the fire and medical textbooks. The office supplies, we got 3 full-time stations. I went up a little bit on that, about $1,000. If you'll notice, the uniforms have increased. We have a grant now with Safer for 18 more people. That incorporates that if we get that grant. And then I went up on the turnout gear for the same reason, because if we get 18 more people, we're going to have to outfit them. And those will be the ones that to cover Rockville Station. I went up a little bit more on fixtures and furniture and fixtures, because of we need a turnout washer and dryer for the station on Fortress. Every station has a washer and dryer except for that station, and it's important that when these guys have a structure fire, they're able to wash their equipment, because the cancer-causing components that it's in it. If you look at line item 718, after the mayor's comments today, that's $93,000 for a fire marshal vehicle, which I think I've got one that he can still drive for a couple of years. And so we'll cut that and probably cut that rescue boat too. So that's $93,000 I can probably save right there. The other equipment is $90,000. That's a special operations equipment, hazmat suits, stuff that has to be temperature controlled and maintained. Some hazmat equipment as far as detection, as far as gas monitors, drone repair and extra batteries for that. We need some extra dive equipment we need to purchase, and then a set of extrication tools. So if you take the $93,000 off, that would be a little bit less than 4.4. It was 4.3 last year. And that's my budget. If I'll answer any questions if anybody's got any.
Any questions on the budget?
$93,000 were for a pickup truck for the fire marshal, which I've got one he can continue that we can use, and then the other one is for the dive boat for our divers.
Have a motion to approve.
Second that.
Have a second. Any further discussion?
Is that a motion to approve the way it's written, or the motion to approve with the 93 grand taken out?
That's up to the mayor. I'm just offering as a sacrifice, because I know what's coming.
That's the chief's offer.
The chief said he was taking the 93 grand out, so I'll take him at his word.
Well, if I don't, he will. So I'm trying to be helpful.
He has the golden pen.
I'll third it.
So I'm clear that this budget without the 93,000 is what the motion is. Another quick question. I noticed we've got the turnout increased. I mentioned this a while ago. You said there's grant money. I know that Kittrell needs 6 more sets that didn't make it in under this first grant thing. So how are we going to take care of that? We're going to add this to, or just take it out of Larry's budget to give it to the volunteers?
No, sir. Mr. Chairman, I think I'll try to squeeze what's left out of the current grant that we have. We have to have that money promised by the end of this next month, and we'll wait and see probably when the General Assembly sine dies within the next 2 weeks, whether or not the governor leaves in a new grant for us, the $3.6 million, whether or not he leaves that in the budget or takes that out. If he leaves it in and we can't find it in this current grant, then we'll pay for that out of there. We'll take care of them one way or the other.
That's my opinion. We'll
Yes,
take
sir.
care of them one way
or the other. Yes, sir.
One other thing I will bring up, along with what Chris brought up about the stipends for the volunteers, State Fire Marshal has run a program through the legislation. All police officers and firefighters get, I think went up last year from $800 a year on training pay, And what the state fire marshal has proposed this year is giving all volunteer fire departments, we have to meet 40 hours. This will be 30 hours for volunteers. It'll be $600 per year per volunteer. And in order to maintain that every year, that they'll all apply for it this year. They get it without any stipulations. Then they got, once they apply, they have everybody's name. They have a year to get their firefighter 1 and a year to get their firefighter 2. Once they complete that, then they can continue to get that money every year. And that'd be off the state budget.
That was my question. Is the state actually going to fund it?
Yeah, state will fund it. And I think the state fire marshal has told me he's not had any problems getting that through there, and they've had a lot of support for it, had a lot of volunteer chiefs to show up and support it. So on top of what the county's offering as a stipend to encourage them to volunteer and to do more, they can also get that training pay. And I think the first year they just pretty much get it for applying for it, but the stipulation is to help them to also get their firefighter 1 and their firefighter 2, which any of the volunteers want to do that in Rutherford County, we can teach. They have to have a hazmat class, so we have the capability to teach that. So we'll do everything we can. And of course, every month we have a commission testing down at our training center. We host that, and all they have to do is apply through the commission to test on that. And we started doing this back when I was fire coordinator, and we've had over 100-something volunteers since that time get their firefighter 1. Of course, they have to have their basic training of 64 hours and live burn, but once they get that, they're able to test for their firefighter 1. And that's just a state certification. And so if they get that credentials, then they get to continue to get that training pay. And then I think after that, they have to have proof that they've done 30 hours of training. And if you take the education training we did last week, that was 36 hours, so that would already qualify for the first year. So there are things that are out there between the state and local government that's doing things to help the volunteers.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
We already have the second. And Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Sherino?
Yes.
Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Mr. Gorley?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you, sir. All right, it says radio systems. There's Mr. Rogers. I've been talking about you all night.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Hey, you can hear, huh? It works. Evening, everyone. You'll see in the notes we're wrapping up our mobile installs. You might as well say we're pretty much done. We've got a couple of stragglers left that we're coming in, but we're pretty much wrapped up on the mobile installs. We brought on our first mutual aid agency last week, TWRA. We brought on 3 of their officers, and now they have the capabilities to communicate within Rutherford County, back and forth. We're presently working with Laverne and Smyrna to bring them on board so they'll have the same capability, which is going to increase the overall interoperability in the county to like the best it's ever been. So that'll be great. The microwave link between EMS and the school transportation office, they had purchased a console on their own, dispatch console. That's up. We hope to have that up and running in the next 2 weeks. So that gives them the ability to full dispatch all their buses and have communications throughout the school system. We also have the AT&T fiber, the redundant fiber for EMS dispatch has been put into place and it's working. You know, we spoke about the backup system that was delayed due to the storm. That's been completed and tested flawlessly, both directions. So we're excited about that. So if we have a failure based on our testing, we're good to go. We'll keep running like we're doing now. We won't notice the difference. We're still waiting on some additional equipment for the sheriff's office to upgrade their consoles. So right now they're still operating on the backup radios, but they're still on the trunk system. So that's where we stand at this moment. Any questions?
Any questions for Peter? If not, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, ambulance report, budget worksheets.
Brought a bus. Big budget.
All right.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll try to be brief because there seems to be a large contingent of us today. So just a brief report from the Medical Examiner's Office. Side of affairs with EMS. In March, we had autopsies totaling 32. Our supervisors, death investigators, investigated 87 death reports. In April, we have done 20 autopsies thus far and investigated 74 death reports. Just to give you some quick perspective on that, our scene investigation numbers, and that means our full scene investigations, regularly rival that of some of our metro areas in Tennessee. The biggest difference between us and metro areas and how we operate is those metro areas have dedicated death investigators. That is their sole job. So I continue to be in awe of our supervisors and supervisor alternates that act as our death investigators in this county. They do an amazing job while doing all the other challenges and responsibilities that their EMS shift entails. So I would like us to keep that in mind when we look at these numbers. We have also done 3 tox-only cases in April thus far that did not reach the threshold of autopsy. Therefore, we did not expend those funds. We were able to do tox-only. We are working on our medical examiner exam room, so we are still conducting those examinations and toxicology collection pulls at St. Thomas Rutherford, who acts as our county morgue. And while we continue to be very thankful and grateful for them allowing us to use their morgue, I must tell you we're looking forward to using our own exam room that is grant funded, because it does take an awful lot of time and energy and coordination working over at St. Thomas Rutherford morgue, whereas when we have our exam room, I think that will lessen that stress and strain on our resources. We have also continued with our in-service classes. We had photography and mock scenes this month. We had guest instructors, Detectives Brinkley from SO and Detective Keys from Laverne PD. I'm very grateful for their assistance and expertise in instructing us on scene processing, and particularly in photography, which is a new responsibility of our death investigators on scenes as we bring up to national standards for death investigation. We also have some new supervisor alternates that are going to be working as death investigators, so we are initiating their training starting this week. They will be doing introduction to death investigation both tomorrow and on Thursday. Just another quick update on our grant funds for our lab medical examiner build out. That is continuing to go on track. We are progressing very, very nicely. They've done CIC are doing a fantastic job, I believe, for us, and I think everybody's going to be very pleased with the final product. We have also ordered some large equipment to be housed in that exam room that we anticipate being delivered probably mid-May, so we're on track with that as well. And we have just ordered our library of texts for our death investigators so that ultimately we can strive for accreditation and certification of our investigators as well, which will, I believe, improve and continue to improve our services for death investigation. Any questions before I move on?
How are we coming with the exam room for the toxology?
They've done the sort of the main bones of the building. They've put the dividing wall up. They have started on the HVAC system in there. The updated electrical is going in very nicely. They're I think, progressing very well, and they're definitely on track. I think they're actually a little bit ahead of the schedule. So.
Okay, sounds good. I know when we got those heart monitors or whatever, you invited some of the commissioners over to see those. Commissioner P went and actually wanted to be a part of it. Maybe you want to be part of toxology when it comes around, Commissioner P. But this is exciting what we're talking about here and what it means for the county, and I think this is something that's going to be good, and glad to hear all of that. Appreciate that. Any other questions we might have? Thank you.
Okay, this is for the month of March. The number of emergency calls we responded to were 3,358. We did 66 hospital transfers, and that's leaving us a total of 3,424 calls for the month. Our average response time was 6.8. We had 87 deaths that we investigated. State payments for those was $2,175. Number of autopsies were 32, and we paid $62,720 for those. Year to date on autopsies is $273 at $535,080. Total billed was $2,143,519. Total collections are at $1,029,397. Year to date on collections is $6,596,939. Projected collections are at $8,795,919. Our collection percentage rate's at 57%. Insurance write-offs was $334,997, and other write-offs at $542,127. And on our non-emergency side, we had 550 calls, had to decline 70 of them. Total bill was $423,954. Total collections is at $123,669. Projected collections are at $1,097,979. Collection rates at 54%. Insurance write-offs were $196,009, and other write-offs at $14,158. If you'll flip over, Melanie sent me some statistics I thought were pretty interesting over the last 20 years. From year 2000 to 2020, our call volume has gone up over 20 years. Total increase of 22,217, which is 162% increase in our call volume. We've only increased our personnel 21, which is 25%, and our population has increased 83%. So I thought these were pretty interesting statistics here. Shows you where we're at on things. I received 4 thank you notes, one from a family member of one of our commissioners, and one report on a patient we flew out for life flight. And that's all my report, sir, before Melanie does the amendment.
Thank you, sir. Any questions on the report?
Move to approve.
Second.
Made to approve. Got a second? Call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Okay, I think we've got a budget amendment, or?
Good evening. We have a total of 3 budget amendments. They should all be on the same page. First, we're requesting to transfer $15,000 from our engineering services line 321 into our communications 307. We've added fiber optic data lines in the communications center, and those are costing just under $5,000 a month, and that we had not budgeted for. The second one, we're requesting to transfer $20,000 from our computer equipment 709 into our gasoline 425. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And last but not least, we received a donation of $1,200 from our EMS medical director, Dr. Russ Galloway, for our EMS week, and we are requesting to appropriate those funds into our donations line item, which is 499 DNTNS.
Motion to approve.
A motion approved. Commissioner Gammon, have a second. Second, Commissioner Sereno. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
I guess we're ready for our budget, and we do have paper copies if you all would like a paper copy. Anyone else? I'm not going line by line unless you want me to. And you can stop me anytime. The first line that we have a significant increase is 105, which are supervisors. And let me say this, we have combined the 911 side with convalescent this year. So all of these figures include the convalescent side also. And we are requesting to promote 3 of our paramedics, take those from line 133, promote those to supervisor positions. And that is the increase in 105.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So these are existing personnel. Are you adding supervisory positions?
We are adding, we are requesting, we have proposed a plan to retain paramedics and EMTs. We proposed it to the mayor, deputy mayor, Lisa Nolan, and Sonia to retain personnel.
Yeah, that kind of goes along with something I'm going to bring up under other business, and that's paying our public safety people. I guess maybe now's not the right time, but I'm going to do it anyway. That if we paid our paramedics, our deputies, our firefighters, as they, gain experience and age with the county, then we wouldn't have to create additional promotional positions, because that seems to be the only way in any of the public safety departments that you can really move forward. I got an email this week, and that kind of brought up the issue, and it kind of took me back to the late 90s, when after 20 plus years I left the state of Tennessee and went into private industry. Immediately got a 20% increase in pay. By the end of the first year, about a 50% increase in pay. By the end of 3 years, a 300% increase in pay. There was nowhere else to go. So I guess I'm going to vote yes on this because I want to keep people. But I think it just brings up the fact that we need to look at ways to improve our pay. Right now, it's not real. You know, back when I started in this business 40 years ago, it was kind of popular to be a police officer or EMT or a firefighter. That's not necessarily the case nowadays. At least it's still, you've got the support of majority of the people here in this county, but as a nation, and even as a state, that's not necessarily true. So I think we need to look as a commission, as a mayor, and anyone else that can brainstorm how best to keep from having to create promotional positions to keep our people, because we need to be paying them all better across the board. And so, like I said, I'll be voting yes on this tonight, but I just wanted to use this opportunity because it just kind of fell in line. I won't have to do this in other business now.
Chairman?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I just want to throw in two items there. One of them, and I'll just touch on this, one of them just for a second, and it's just the way things was at the time, or were. We had a pay plan put in place back in '95, and rightly so. And unfortunately, over the years, it got changed like 5 times. If we'd have stuck with that original pay plan, people would have been making a lot more money. And we were the land of milk and honey at one point, and I know we had some down times, and that's understandable, that we had to freeze wages and all this. But and this commission that I've seen since I've been here has been very vocal and strong, and it just, you know, joys my heart to see what they're doing with public safety people. But the other side of the coin is, I mean, you got to take care of who you got, but also to bring new people in, whether it's EMTs, paramedics, or whoever. I wish somehow we could follow what the state does. And what the state does, you know, I think we give, and I may be wrong right now, I think we give some credit to everybody X number of years. And last I remember, I'm sorry, it's 5 years, but, you know, it's like the state. If you've got 22 years of experience, that's the scale they pay you on when you come to the state and everything. And there's no debate on it. I mean, if you've got proof of your qualifications, that's what you get paid. Now, we also got to take care of the present employees in here, and that may not go over well, but if you want to keep people and get quality people in to keep stealing people from us, let's steal from them and bring them in here under those circumstances. And I think that's going to take some planning, some thought process by Sonia and the mayor, but we've got to start finding a way in public safety to bring in more people. It's just like you're talking about volunteer firefighters. We've got to find a way to bring people in and also to keep what we got. So I agree with Commissioner Gurley. I mean, the timing may not be perfect, but the timing's right for us to address this, because if you've noticed across the nation, you got people leaving left and right from departments. And if there's some way we can bring them even to us after, you know, background checks, you don't want everybody, trust me, especially out of Minneapolis. But but I'm just saying we've got to come up with a game plan.
Commissioner Gammon and Gurley, you're absolutely right. I pulled my staff in and asked them to help develop a way to keep our people and recruit people, but not give a raise to do it. And they've come up with a plan that I'm very confident in working. It's going to cost me 12 people to do it, but the word has already gotten out of our plan. I want to create a 24/72 shift versus a 24/48-hour shift. And people all over the surrounding counties have been calling us about this. And I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to get them in trouble with their county, but I think we'll be recruiting a lot of people pretty quick if this were to go through. We've cut every inch that we could in order to try to make it happen. I don't know any other options that I have left in order to try to keep retaining our people, because I'm starting to lose 10 and 12-year employees. But I just wanted to confirm what Commissioner Gammon said. That's exactly what this budget will reflect, is the plan to do that. I'll let Melanie continue.
And this plan has created a lot of excitement among our EMS family, the paramedics, EMTs who are working now, and like Carl said, the ones in other counties have been interested in coming if we do implement this. And if we do, then the 3 extra supervisors in the 105 line item would be for that extra shift. Any questions about the 105? We'll skip down to 133, paraprofessionals. You will see a significant increase, but this does include the convalescent. And we are moving 3 of those personnel into the supervisor line item and requesting 6 new AEMT positions and 5 new paramedics.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Are we making a profit off the convalescent?
Yes, sir, we are. That was why it was suggested to combine them, because it was making a profit. The increase, the next item that's increased is 196, in-service training. We have taken out the dispatch training, but we are teaching more classes, and we need a significant, or it's just a small increase, $2,000. $312 contracts has decreased half, and most of those were the communications dispatch contracts for radios, the CAD. If I skip one that you would like to discuss, let me know. $338, vehicle services. We are requesting a decrease, but we are moving those funds into 453, which are vehicle parts. And if you'll remember, we've already done a budget amendment this year. Medical and dental services, that's for our medical director. We're requesting a 3% increase. 349, printing, stationery, and forms, we're requesting a $500 increase due to personnel turnover. And I will say right now we have 15 paramedic and EMT vacancies on the trucks. We just had another turn in his notice this week. Requesting a decrease in custodial supplies. A small increase in 411 data processing supplies for printers for the supervisor office. Drugs and medical supplies, we did just request a budget amendment last month, so we're requesting quite a bit, $130,000 more. We're requesting an increase in gasoline from $200,000 to $260,000. A decrease in office supplies.
Melanie.
Yes, sir.
Go back up to the medical supplies. That increase, is that all COVID related? That $130,000 you were talking about?
There are new protocols, and Director Hudgens might be able to explain that.
Some of it is, but a lot of it is just our increased call volume. We're just making more calls. So the more calls, we're using more equipment.
Well, I noticed part of it is stocking new ambulances. So how many ambulances, new ones, are we talking about?
6.
Okay.
Well,
6 total.
I'm sorry. 1 new, 3 remounts, and 2 ambulance vans.
I got that.
Okay.
Took me a moment to add it up. Thank you. Well, my question for that is, you know, if we're successful in finding grant money to build multiple stations, we're going to be coming back and looking at needing more ambulances and personnel to fit these. Okay, I see nods all around.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure everybody sitting here was aware of that.
We are requesting a decrease in utilities, and that's mostly because of the communication center has gone to EMA. Vehicle parts, 453, as I said, we increased that, but that came from 338. $499, other supplies and materials. We are adding computer mounts, dock stations, and CAD antennas on the ambulances. And then $499 STTNS is for the stations, maintenance on the stations. We need to replace the windows at the Burton Street station.
So talk to me about windows. I hadn't heard anything about having a problem there.
This is at the 606 East Burton, and the windows, I'm pretty sure they've never been replaced since they moved in 1987. Mm-hmm. Assessments and penalties is the same. Those are the TennCare. We pay TennCare, they pay us. Building improvements, we're requesting to remodel the education room at Lytle Street. As I said, with 196, we are teaching more classes. 708 communication equipment, all of that now comes out of the EMA budget. We requesting a decrease in data processing equipment, 709, but we do need to purchase 2 tough books for 2 of the ambulances. 718 motor vehicles, significant increase, but this does include the convalescent. We're requesting 2 ambulance vans for the convalescent division, 1 new ambulance, and 3 remounts, for a total of 6 vehicles. Is that right? Yes. Health equipment, we have decreased, but we do need to purchase new AEDs, stair chairs, and gateways for the new ambulances. So the total request for 911 and convalescent is $16,130,963, which is a decrease over this current year of $362,105, or 2.19%. Any questions?
Ms. Machado, did you readjust the numbers after the insurance committee met last week? So
No, sir.
All right, so we had originally plugged that in, Commissioner Phillips, at 10% for all departments to start building their budget on, and the recommendation coming from the insurance committee last week, we took that down to 3.8%, so that'll be an additional savings as well.
Oh, good. Okay. Yes, that was the 10% that Lisa had given me.
But you're plugged in on these numbers at 10%. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Does this decrease calculated, does that include the removal of dispatch?
Yes, sir.
It does.
And the addition of the convalescent.
Okay.
And if you look at the columns, the 2020-2021 original budget amounts do not reflect the convalescent, but if you'll look at the bottom, the total convalescent we included at the bottom.
Okay, I see it.
Okay. We didn't go back in and put each line item and add, we just added it at the very bottom.
Melody, do you have a total of what the dispatch?
What we took out for, 1.6 million. That includes salaries, benefits, contracts, and that was like $60,000, I think, with the contracts. I got it right here. Communication, the phones, data lines, CAD licenses, radio contracts, ink for their printers, their office supplies, utilities, miscellaneous supplies, and their data processing equipment. And they were requesting to add another console. So it was 1.6 million total.
You're kind of offsetting that by adding your convalescents back in. It's taken me a little while to see what I've got. So, but thank you for pointing that out.
Any other questions?
Okay. No, sir. No, sir. That includes. You got it. Replacement of heat and air units, 21,000. This is just to anticipate. Exterior doors, 4,500. The windows were 4,500 at Burton Street. And yes, that was just garage door openers, and then other supplies and materials. But no, it wasn't 42,000 just for the windows. I'm sorry.
42,000
total.
in essence to do a lot of maintenance to that.
Correct. To all the buildings.
It might have something to do with the STTMS, but why don't we just put that under regular?
We did have it under just the 499, and for some reason last year they wanted us to separate it.
Once again, that's apples and oranges.
It was last year that they asked us to separate it into the stations and the other. I think it was finance that wanted us to do that. Thank you. I'm sure.
Other comments?
We do have the revenue estimate worksheets. 10.2 million estimated revenue, and the 5-year capital plan. I won't go over all of those, but you got what?
I need to run something down.
Oh, okay.
Also, we met with our billing company a couple months ago. I'm not pleased with the collections. As you saw in this report and last month, that they've improved a little bit, but I'm going to be making a decision. I'm looking at other options for us. I know that we can increase our collections on the ambulance side, and probably sometime right after June or July, we're probably going to, I'll be hooking up with the mayor and y'all and going over another option for us. So just wanted to make you aware that our collections will be coming up. So that'll help us.
I was going to ask the mayor, you got any comments you'd like to make on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will be, I'm okay with the budget as it is presented tonight, but we'll be making, as I stated earlier, and previous budgets, we'll be working on this as it gets to budget. We're going to have to come in and look hard, get some numbers presented. I'm okay with what he's presented here tonight, but we've got some hard choices we're going to have to make. If it's look at those actual needs versus our wants. Can we get another year out of the windows? I don't know, but we're going to have to make some cuts somewhere. I'll make those recommendations at budget time. Tonight, for tonight's purposes, I would say let's go ahead and send it on with a positive recommendation to the budget committee. Not that I'm trying to lay it on budget, but it's a timing situation between what we get with the grants, which we'll know in the next week or so. If we get one or two of the grants, then I can take some of that grant money, and I'll make the recommendation that we take that grant money and buy, instead of replacement or 3 remounts, then we'll buy some new ones and put that into the budget with grant money, and we can subtract that out. If not, then we'll have to make other cuts. We don't have a definition on the big grant that we're supposed to get, and then the governor's grant also that we're working on. There's a lot of money out there, but we can't spend it till we have a true definition of how we can spend it, because we don't want to spend it and have to send it back, and if we spend it improperly. That makes any sense to you? And
I'd say it's good answers all the way around, and I don't disagree about sending this forward to budget. I've still got a lot of questions sitting here looking at this, but one thing I do want to say, I like what I heard about maybe changing and offering some more shifts and incentives to keep our employees. I know I took an ambulance ride here about a year or so ago, and I talked to these drivers, and one thing that one of them said to me kind of stuck in my head is he changed to I forget what it was, maybe a 12-hour day shift, and he's able to be at home at night, and he said he wouldn't trade it for anything. But having options like that for our people may help advise keeping them. And I applaud you for looking out of the box and trying to do that. I think that's something, you know, I know there are some restrictions at the state level on, say, firefighters, but I think the same thing could apply there if we're able to do that. I know if I was a firefighter, I'd rather be at home at night or working a solid shift than, you know, on 2 days and off. You know, it kind of messes up your home life. Thank you. And having said all that, I'm going to make a motion to forward this to budget.
Second.
Motion's made, got a second. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Thank you all.
You know, we've had some budgets presented here tonight. I think Carl's probably had one of the toughest when he come in here tonight under adversity. He broke a tooth this weekend, and he's got to have a root canal tomorrow, and he's operating under Tylenol and that sort of thing till he's got to go have that done tomorrow. So I understand everything he says up here tonight he meant. He wanted to get it through and go on. So we appreciate all the efforts that's done here this evening. Other business.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to ask the mayor, or so, is this a year where we're probably not going to know exactly what the budget's going to be till the very last minute, or we're going to pass a budget and then come back and maybe amend it later on?
Right now, I would say it's your first comment that it may be late and we may not know until we come here. I'm hoping we can get all this ferreted out by the second week of June before we come back with the final. You know, there are just so many variables. The month, the State Board of Education is behind at least a month. So our local Board of Education has no idea because they don't know how much they're getting from the BEP formula because they're a month behind, which will affect what they request. And so that's putting us well into the middle of May. You know, and we'll be jockeying numbers and you know, our hotel motel tax is way down, as you can imagine, because of COVID. Our sales tax is up over this time last year over the internet sales. A good thing is we will be deleting the development tax of $1,500, and it's on the governor's desk, the dollar per square foot. It was transmitted to the governor's desk last Thursday. So that's good. That'll pick us up another $4 million in revenue over what we have traditionally been getting. So we're looking at all angles, every nook and cranny we can find. But bottom line, it's the largest majority of our increases comes with salary and benefits, taking care of our folks. And as you know, and as the way it's always been, is school board sends their budget over, and it consumes about 75 to 80% of our total budget. So that's why we're trying to get locked down on some of our general fund budgeting this year, and this is maybe an opportunity for us on our convenience centers and our public safety buildings to get some of those items that we need to take care of the folks through the general fund budget process. I know it's a long answer, but
Will we get to listen to the school board proposal tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night, we'll see how they justify 5% increase. That's
Any other business?
I have a comment. Sounds like the budget's a moving target this year.
Usually.
Yeah. So, I I want to lighten things up a little bit. I've said this before. I love being on public safety for a reason. Because everybody that came up here makes us safer. Several years ago, very, very good friend of mine's son died of an opioid overdose. One of his two sons, 2 out of 3, died of opioid overdose. Wendy, Wave. First time I saw Wendy was at the hospital. When my buddy called me, I went up there. She was in there with the family. She was family. She acted like family. And she gives a great hug, by the way. I saw her again a couple weeks ago. This past week, I pulled out of my driveway and I heard sirens, and here comes Rutherford County Fire Truck. The other end is EMS. And they pulled down a driveway, long driveway, the Ward property. Mr. Ward's kids, grandkids, they built houses all the way down this road. And the very last house, and I usually don't get into a scene, whether it be a crime scene, or emergency or whatever, but I know some of the wards. I went down there. And I wish Chief Farley was here, there was EMS and Rutherford County Fire. I stood back and watched. The care, the compassion, it was like they were there for their own family. And they brought this lady out in a, I don't know what you call it, looked like a bag with all kinds of straps on it. They hauled her out and put her on a gurney and got her in the ambulance, took off. The family called me the next day, and I was in tears through half the conversation because they said she got to the hospital, she was having trouble breathing, they put her on a ventilator. She didn't have COVID. They put her on the ventilator. That's when I started tearing up because I knew what was coming, or I thought I knew what was coming. She said they took her off the ventilator. She's being discharged this afternoon. She's coming home. I went through this, my father-in-law. Had the ambulance not got him to the hospital with what they call blood clots in the lungs, pulmonary embolisms. He didn't have one, he had a bunch of them in both lungs. Had EMS not gotten him there when they did, he would have died. Had that Miss Ward gotten to the hospital, when they got her there and they ran emergency traffic all the way to the hospital, she would have died. So that's why I love public safety. I know we got budget issues. We got some hard decisions to make, and Commissioner P, I would not want to be in your shoes, and Mayor.
But that's okay, because you still have to vote too.
Yes, I still have to vote too. But these are the guys, and I look back a while ago, there's like 4 of them here. I thought, this is the safest place in Rutherford County right now. If I should have a heart attack or a stroke, I'm good. That's what they do every single day, 24/7. The firefighters and the EMS, the sheriff's office. I'm just telling you, I love being on this committee because we have the best of the best in Rutherford County, And if Rutherford County citizens don't feel safe, they probably won't want to live here. They're coming here by the droves for various reasons, but I would venture to say one of them is the fact that we got the best of the best in this county.
Amen.
With that, we're adjourned.
Hey, one item, Mr. Chairman, real quick, for those of you who would like to come out and see something nice, Saturday morning, 9 o'clock, Community Care Nursing Facility. They have gone out, the Riverdale FFA is going out Saturday morning, so if you want to come out there and see what they're doing, they've already got, it's about the size of 2 football fields plowed up, and Mr. Beaudry will be here tomorrow night. He kicked in $300 to buy seed, and Melissa Harrell kicked in $300. They got $600 worth of seed that they'll be planting for vegetables. 2 football fields. I mean, it's a huge garden. We've got the inmates. Mr. Cope is going to bring the inmates out to keep it weeded during the summer, and they're planning enough to take it all the way through the fall. So if you want to come out, it'll be a nice little event for our nursing home folks out there, and get that garden going. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was glad they didn't